Welcome to Biblical Antiquities, a series of studies into Bible archaeology and history. I am Raymond, Capt, biblical archaeologist and research historian. Our Creator has revealed many things to man in many ways. In addition to the written word of the Bible, we learn from creation itself and from the archaeological record of past civilizations. This series is designed to open your understanding to many truths, some of which may be new to you. Allow the Holy Spirit, or Spirit of Truth, and the Word of God to be your guide. This series is narrated by Paul H. Johnson.
The stars declare His glory. There is no branch of science that confirms faith in God more than does astronomy. By searching the heavens, we do not find God, but we are able to see the glory of His creation and fathom some of the bewildering complexity of the structure and motion of the starry systems which obey divine law. We cannot delve into the science of the stars without feeling humbled and insignificant. We are reminded of the words of David, for he declared in Psalm 8, "Let me sing of this, thy heavenly strength, like tiny children lisping out thy praise. For as I look up to the heavens, thy fingers made, the moon and stars that thou hast shaped, I ask, what is man, that thou shouldest think of him? What is mortal man, that thou shouldest heed him?" In his Divine Comedy, Dante declared, "I raised my eyes aloft, and I beheld the scattered chapters of the universe, gathered and bound into a single book by the austere and tender hand of God." Modern astronomy tells a dramatic story of how the boundaries of the universe have been pushed back by long and arduous research in fields of science. The physicists who discovered how to release the power of the atom have helped to give us a new concept of the starry heavens. The chemists who learned how to identify elements and their compounds by unique means have helped to solve some of the mysteries of our solar system. The universe that the ancients knew was vastly different from the one we are acquainted with today. In the days of Abraham, only 5 planets could be seen with the naked eye of man, and it was not until late in the 18th century that the 6th planet, Uranus, was discovered. Mathematical calculations and great telescopes made it possible to bring another planet, Neptune, to the gaze of the astronomers in 1846. However, it was not until the 3rd decade of our present century that painstaking research brought Pluto into view, a planet twice as far from the Sun as Uranus. Therefore, an expanded solar system swings into our view today, for we have 9 planets, including our Earth, to study. Heraclitus, the philosopher, noticed that the planets Mercury and Venus did not move very far from the Sun. Because of this, he suggested that they might actually revolve around the Sun, and the Sun in turn revolved around the Earth. However, no one in his day took his suggestions seriously. Aristarchus, who lived in the 3rd century before Christ, proposed a simple and daring view of the heavens. He suggested that the Sun was the center around which the planets revolved, and he went so far as to make an attempt to measure the distances from the Earth to the Sun and the Moon. His reasoning was correct, but his instruments for measurement were too crude to give him accurate results. 18 centuries later, Nicolaus Copernicus was to advocate the same theory. Claudius Ptolemy, the last of the great ancients, who lived in Alexandria, Egypt, about AD 150, gave Greek astronomy an organized system of thought about the universe which prevailed in man's thinking for over 1,400 years. He extended the ideas of his predecessors, who said the earth was motionless in the center of the heavens, and that the planets moved in small circles about the earth. The Ptolemaic system was based upon the obvious appearance of the starlit sky, and it was adopted by thinking and unthinking people alike. Copernicus upset the Ptolemaic theory when he published his views in the middle of the 16th century. This Polish scientist, painter, poet, churchman, physician, and soldier found time to work out an entirely new system of astronomy which completely changed man's ideas about the universe. He taught that far out in space there were fixed stars that were immovable. He said the earth was not the center of the universe, but that it rotated on its axis and moved in an annual orbit around the sun. The other planets, according to him, also moved around the sun, and that the various phenomena of the heavens could be explained in harmony with these assumptions. Thus our world, formerly thought to be stationary, was sent spinning through the heavens, and new vistas of the universe were opened to the mind of man. But Copernicus did not live to see his view accepted, for the manuscript of his book was not sent to the printer until the author was almost 70 years of age. Before the printing was completed, the scientist became seriously ill and died. When other scientists read the book by Copernicus, they immediately raised a number of objections to his theory. Some of the doubters said that Venus should show phases similar to those of the moon if the planets actually revolved around the sun. Copernicus was aware of this problem, and he had said, God was good, and someday he would show the phases of Venus to someone. His prediction came true, for in succeeding centuries, the phases of Venus have been carefully observed many times through telescopes. Galileo and his successors proved the truth of Copernicus' view by scanning the night sky with telescopes. With his optic tube, as he called it, Galileo in 1610 saw 4 moons revolving around Jupiter, the first objects in the solar system to be discovered by man beyond that which his eyes had seen. Since Galileo's time, our knowledge of the universe has continued to increase, until today man's attempts to fathom the immensity of space and to comprehend the infinite number of blazing suns, nebulae, and galaxies that move through the universe. When telescopes were perfected, astronomers found the number of stars so immense that the task of naming them all became impossible. Therefore they tagged the principal stars of a constellation with the letters of the Greek alphabet, Alpha the brightest, Beta the next brightest, and so on. But since there were not enough letters in the alphabet to attach to all the stars that have been discovered, astronomers in recent years have catalogued and numbered the stars according to their position. Thus, 21 Virgo refers to star 21 in the constellation of Virgo, the Virgin. Although man is unable to name the countless millions of suns being brought into view by greater telescopes, it is awe-inspiring to remember that God calleth them all by names, by the greatness of his might, as we read in Isaiah chapter 40, verse 26. Look up into the dome of the sky on an autumn evening, and you will see stretching diagonally from the northeast to the southeast across the sky the jeweled belt of the Milky Way. What seems to be a cloud of light resolves itself into unnumbered individual stars when viewed through a large telescope. Our solar system is in the Milky Way, the common term for our galaxy, a word which in the Greek means milky. Almost all the stars we see with the naked eye, as well as millions of others too far away or too faint to be observed except through a telescope, are a part of our galaxy. There are from 1 to 200 million suns in our Milky Way. Our entire galaxy, or Milky Way, of which our solar system is but a particle, is rotating at a high speed around the center of our galaxy. It requires 200 million years for this huge galactic system to rotate once, and in it move giant suns, some gathered in groups called globular clusters, some traveling in twos or threes, some speeding alone on their appointed course. In this system are bright and dark nebulae, believed to be mammoth clouds of tiny particles of cosmic dust. How large is our galaxy? It is so wide that light requires about 100,000 light-years to cross it. A light-year is the distance that light travels in 1 year at a speed of 186,500 miles per second. Although this is equivalent to some 6 trillion miles, yet our immense universe has made even this giant yardstick inadequate to measure the actual vastness of space. We might think of our galaxy as a wheel about 10,000 light-years thick and 100,000 light-years in diameter. Our Earth and little solar system is about 1/2 to 2/3 of the way out from the center, or about 30,000 light-years from the hub of the galaxy. Since there are billions of giant suns in this space, we might imagine that they are crowded together in a traffic jam. This is not true, however, for the nearest star to Earth is over 25 trillion miles away. It takes light 4.28 light-years to reach our eyes from the star that is our next-door neighbor, Proxima Centauri. But we have not yet formed the complete picture. There are millions of other galactic systems similar to our Milky Way. Each of these separate galaxies comprise a universe in itself with millions of suns and perhaps billions of planets as large as or larger than those that revolve around our sun. Perfected telescopes are bringing more and more galaxies into view. The opening of the giant telescope on Hawaii's Mauna Kea in 1992 has sighted hundreds of new galaxies. Advanced infrared telescopes promise to push back the frontiers of space to such an extent that it is incomprehensible. Under construction in northern Chile is Europe's Very Large Telescope. This is known as the VLT, or Very Large Telescope, and consists of 4 telescopes joined together that will have a light-collecting area 10 times more sensitive than the 200-inch Mount Palomar telescope, and will see 50 times more sharply than the Hubble Space Telescope. Now consider the speed at which these billions of suns and their planets are moving, at rates that seem almost unbelievable. We know that our sun is traveling at the rate of 12 miles per second, which is about 540 billion miles a year. But this is relatively slow motion on the celestial highways. The 20 stars nearest to the Earth have an average transverse motion of 31 miles a second, while the giant star Arcturus is traveling at 85 miles per second, or 5,000 miles per minute. Twin stars in the constellation the Swan race round each other at the incredible speed of 1,500,000 miles per hour, or 5,000 miles a minute. Although the 2 stars, or suns, are over 11,500,000 miles apart, they circle each other in less than 2 days. The stars of our galaxy vary greatly in size, density, and brightness. They do not all give off a steady or constant light. Some stars flare up and fade in brightness from hour to hour, while others take months to go through their period of variation. One group of stars, known as white dwarfs, have amazing characteristics that are almost unbelievable. One example is Sirius B. Though only 26,000 miles in diameter, that is, a little more than 3 times the diameter of the Earth, has a mass 250,000 times that of our planet. In other words, a tablespoon of the material of this star would on the Earth weigh a ton, and a piece no larger than a grain of sand would weigh over 1 pound. The force of gravity exerted by Sirius B, says Dr. E.C. Pickering of Harvard College Observatory, would cause the average man to weigh 2,600 pounds if he were on its surface, and would flatten him out so thoroughly that he would have to be picked off the surface with a razor blade if you could lift the razor blade. God's heaven is full of beautiful colors. You will see bright red stars and shimmering blue ones in the constellation of Orion, brilliant white stars such as Sirius, yellow stars like our Sun and the great star Capella, and vivid orange spheres of which Arcturus is one. Man has dimmed the beauty of the starry night with flashing neon signs and glaring headlights, but stand on a mountaintop in the stillness of a dark night and observe the stars that declare His glory. No sight that human eyes can look upon is more provocative of awe than the night sky, scattered thickly with stars. If we observe the stars more frequently, the experience might shrink our egos and put the sense of wonder in our hearts. As Hermann Hagedorn says in his poem, "We are such little men when the stars come out, so small under the open maw of the night, that we must shout and pound the table and drive wild and gather dollars and madly dance and drink deep and send the great birds flying and drop dead. When the stars come out, we are such little men that we must arm ourselves in the glare and thunder, or cave in on our own dry littleness. We are such little men when the stars come out. Ah, God behind the stars, touch with your finger this mite of meaningless dust, and give it substance. I am so little under the frown of the night. Be you my body, you my eyes, my lips, my hands, my feet, my heartbeat and my hunger, that I may face the infinite spaces and live, and stand in quietness when the stars come out." The author of those words writes as if he expects everyone believes without saying, so that the Almighty created the stars. He seems to feel it is so universally known that it scarcely needs to be stated. Yet there are many in this century of enlightenment who refuse to see in the splendor of the heavens the power of God, who created the universe, who upholds it with His power. Why can they not believe, as did John Dryden when he wrote, "This is a peace too fair, to be the child of chance and not of care. No atoms casually together hurled could e'er produce so beautiful a world." Ralph Waldo Emerson once wrote, "If the stars should appear one night in 1,000 years, how would men believe and adore, and preserve for many generations, the remembrance of the city of God which had been shown? But every night come out these envoys of beauty, and light the universe with their admonishing smile." How true is that statement! Because we see them often, the miraculous lamps of the sky, they have become commonplace to us. We rush headlong in the rut of everyday existence, failing to lift our eyes to the pageant of the stars, the eternal jewels of night. That this vast cosmos is the handiwork of God, the master designer, as clearly stated by Paul the Apostle when he affirms in Colossians chapter 1, verses 16 and 17, "For by Him were all things created, that are in the heaven and that are in the earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things were created by him and for him, and he is before all things, and by him all things consist. The meaning of these words is amplified in Weymouth's translation, which reads, "Through him the universe is one harmonious whole." The prophet Amos, in his task of herding sheep in the days of ancient Israel, watched the silent stars above the hills of Palestine. Some of the wonder of God's creation filled his soul, and when he called his people to a revival of justice and true religion, he said, "Seek him that maketh the 7 stars and Orion." Amos chapter 5, verse 8. His message has much more significance today than it did when it was uttered some 2,600 years ago, since telescopes have revealed many secrets of the Pleiades and Orion, which were then unknown. As the mind grasps the significance of our solar system, expanded today by the discoveries of astronomy, it is natural for us to ask, do other suns, that we call stars, have planets revolving about them? Do they move in harmony with the laws of the universe? Do they have planets? Is there life on these other planets? Are these neighboring worlds inhabited by creatures similar to man and the animals of the earth? Astronomy can give an affirmative answer to the first question. Various inventive spectroscopic methods have located massive planets orbiting other stars, although they have been unable to reveal relatively small bodies the size and mass of our planet. Yet, over the next 20 years, NASA envisions a series of increasingly ground and space-based searches to locate life-bearing planets. However, it is almost impossible for one who has faith in the Creator, who made the worlds, to think that our little planet is the only one that was made to be inhabited, and that throughout the vast deeps of space, nowhere but on our little Earth life is found. It is more illogical to believe that none of the worlds of other systems have planetary systems and are inhabited. In all probability, some of the suns of the universe have planetary systems, with some planets having climatic conditions similar to that of our Earth, and could be inhabited by intelligent beings. Why then suppose that this little spot, little at least in the immensity which surrounds it, should be the exclusive abode of life and of intelligence? What reason to think that those mightier globes which exist in other parts of creation, and which we have discovered to be worlds in magnitude, are not also worlds in use, and in our Creator's grand plan of the ages? Why should we think that the great architect of the universe, supreme in wisdom as he is in power, would call these stately mansions into existence and leave them unoccupied? Are we therefore to say that they are so many vast and unpeopled solitudes, that desolation reigns in every part of the universe but ours, that the whole energy of the divine attributes is expended on one insignificant corner of these mighty works, and that to this earth alone belongs the blessedness of life and immortal existence? This conception of the universe is in harmony with the inspired testimony of the prophet Isaiah, chapter 45 and verse 18. For thus saith the Lord that created the heavens, God himself that formed the earth and made it. He hath established it. He created it not in vain. He formed it to be inhabited. I am the Lord, and there is none else. The noted astronomer, Dr. David Todd, when director of Amherst College Observatory, said, "The chances must be overwhelmingly in favor of vast number of planets in the other stellar systems being favorably circumstanced as to heat and moisture, for the maintenance of life at the present time. That is, they are habitable, and if habitable, then no doubt thousands of them are inhabited now. As we observe the thousands of suns through powerful telescopes and recognize the grandeur and beauty of God's symphony of the stars, we wonder, why should the Creator of the universe care for such creatures as man on one of the tiniest planets in a solar system dwarfed by star clusters and galaxies? Why should the Creator of the universe care for man who has turned his back on him and disobeyed his commandments? We say with David, "What is man, that thou shouldest heed him?" The answer is the mystery of divine love. We have a Creator who not only made millions of suns, but he loves man that he created in his image. Although man became sinful and disobedient, God came in the form of a Son to live with man and take on a mortal life to die for man, that man might be brought back into the family of God. While the stars testify to the Creator's wisdom and power, it is in the death of Jesus Christ that we see the clearest revelation of the Father's love and mercy. It was on the cross of Golgotha that God's love focused in its greatest intensity as he redeemed his people from the penalty that doomed them and brought salvation to all mankind that put their trust in him. We are not insignificant in the eyes of God. Although our world may only be one of millions in the starry sky, every human being made in the image of our Creator is precious. Look up into the sky and observe the sun, the moon, and the stars at night, and consider the words of Jeremiah chapter 31, verses 35 and 36, which reads, "Thus saith the Lord, which giveth the sun for a light by day, and the ordinances of the moon and of the stars for a light by night, which divideth the sea when the waves thereof roar. The Lord of hosts is his name. If those ordinances depart from before me, saith the Lord, then the seed of Israel also shall cease from being a nation before me forever." The stars do declare his glory as the one who spread the stars across the universe to shine like diamonds in a vaulted hall. He broadcast them as hand-sown seeds might fall, or as coins spilled out of some rich man's purse. He made man for better or for worse, and placed him on a tiny spinning ball that whirled around one of the stars so small. Yet I have heard man give to him the curse. Would man in his own adoration bask, denying God performed this mighty task? Oh yes, we have these hands, this brain of ours, and these are free with no restraining bars. But lest you be conceited with your powers, man, make for me a galaxy of stars.
I hope you have enjoyed this study in biblical antiquities, covering archaeological research in the Bible lands that has led to a proper understanding of the biblical text and historical events it records.